Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place. Let's talk about shadow stuff today.
Ooh, I really
Shadow.
like talking about shadow stuff.
Shadow stuff. I thought we'd specifically discuss existential kink as a particular method of doing shadow work. And existential kink is not all of shadow work by any means.
So tell us what existential kink
Well,
is.
existential kink is a particular method, a way, a meditation, a way of doing your shadow work that was described by Carolyn Lovewell, in the book Existential Kink. And Carolyn's got a pretty broad public profile. Her work's out there in the world. And I came to it because I was looking for a community of people who were practicing modern shadow work. But I also trained in Jungian psychology. So I was coming into existential kink. I certified as an existential kink coach because I was very curious about this particular modern perspective on shadow work. Um, and when I got there, I found, yeah, I like it. And I also really felt deeply grounded in my own background as a Jungian and archetypal psychologist. I feel like I have a strong positionality when it comes to doing this work and applying it. But not everybody really um, wants to do shadow work. And I just want to say, if the idea of doing shadow work is overwhelming to you, remember you get to dose it correctly for yourself, right? Like we're going to talk about what shadow is
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, what it
Let's
means to
talk
do
about what
shadow work.
shadow is and what shadow work
Wow.
is. Sure.
So before I give technical definitions, do you want to talk about what you think of? Because I can give very technical definitions if you'd
Right.
like. And we could just jump right in there.
So
But
yeah, I I think of shadow. I interact with shadow as the parts of me that I have decided not to look at
mhm.
over my life.
Yeah, well, you're right on. So Jung's pithiest quote on what shadow is, and Jung is the one who coined that particular word, that turn of phrase, but the concept of there being stuff that we don't look at goes much further back than Jung. But the pithiest quote is that shadow is that which a person has no wish to be. Shadow is that which a
That is
person
pithy.
has no wish to be. That's
Yeah.
in Collected Work 16, paragraph 340. So it's what we reject, suppress, deny, what we revile about ourselves, what has no chance to be known about ourselves.
Okay. So there's the unconscious, which is all the things we don't know about ourselves.
Yeah.
And then there's the shadow, which you're saying is the stuff we don't want to know. And that's certainly not all of the unconscious, because I've had stuff come up from my unconscious like, oh, I wish I'd known that was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where it gets a little tricky because you
Yeah.
could actually use the concept of shadow as something that is more morally neutral, right? We could
Hmm.
talk about golden shadow, the parts of ourselves that we don't know how to integrate about ourselves that uh, we do
We do wish to
theoretically
be.
want them and like
Hmm.
them, but they still lie in the shadow. So another way to think about shadow is to consider that it is where all of the stuff that we don't know about ourselves, where that lies. So if you like the metaphor of the shadow is beautiful. It's the shadow, therefore it lies. So okay, let's use a Disney reference. When Mufasa and Simba are looking out across the plains, all right, they're looking off out across the Sahara savannah, and he says, "What's that over there on the edge?" "Oh, you are king of everything the light touches." "What's that over there?" The light wasn't touching this one area, right? The shadow. But also, I mean, there's stuff that is confusing to us that we're not sure how we feel about it.
Hmm.
So all of the stuff in our unconscious, I mean, we're never going to know everything. The unconscious is vast to the point of ineffability. the personal unconscious. And then there's the collective unconscious, the archetypal layer of humanity that is far bigger than I could ever hope to know and integrate. And if I were to try to integrate all of that into my one being, I mean, what's that? Definitely a risk of serious psychosis. So the point isn't to try to integrate everything, and yet, so much of what we have shoved off into the shadow or what has gotten um, relegated there is due to our particular socialization, the way our society told us to be, what we imagined we needed to be in order to be
Mhm.
accepted by our family, by our community, right? There are plenty of things. I'm thinking about you right now. I remember you describing to me how your parents never really talked about things. Um, and but you made conclusions, right?
I
Like
did.
like
Yeah.
thinking about sex. Like, did your
Mhm.
parents ever talk about sex?
No.
Did they ever make it clear that they were heading off to the bedroom to bop
Mm.
around?
Nope.
And yet and so they didn't say anything negative about it,
Nope.
but what's the impression you drew about how you should feel about your sexual urges?
Well, I shouldn't talk about them,
You shouldn't talk about
and
them.
things that I shouldn't talk about, there must be something wrong with them.
So
That's
you
why, because the reason that I wouldn't talk about it is there must be something wrong. That was my conclusion. You're
Yeah,
right.
so as a
Yep.
child, you made this leap, this you made a you made an inference,
Yep.
and from that, somebody else might have actually inferred quite the opposite. Someone else might have said, "Well, nobody's saying anything, so I don't know. I guess I get to decide whatever I want about it."
Right.
Um, but frequently, we pick up these not just from our parents, we pick them up from a broader social context, right? So we're socialized, and socialization is not a bad thing, but we're socialized, and along the way, we're constantly inferring what the rules are, what how we can stay in the in group, and how we cannot be cast aside, how we can remain one with our community, and I mean, it's just profoundly impactful that we cut off parts of ourselves to fit in. We amplify other parts of ourselves that we imagine are wanted and wantable. Sex is one of the things that I find often gets shoved into the shadow. In fact, I have a whole masterclass just on identifying your sexual shadow material. Um, but it's really important to me that we also remember that there are qualities and facets of the shadow that are not things that we inherently think are bad. So if I think about, let's say, um, perversity, right? Like what is kink and perversity, right? What's all the stuff that I've decided? Let's say I've decided that hitting someone and getting off on hitting someone, even in a consensual way, it riles me up. Now I might have labeled that and shoved that into the shadow, but I could equally shove beauty, intelligence, things that I desperately want to be into the shadow. So,
Yeah. I mean, I have an example of that. Um, my leadership qualities,
mm,
because I didn't want to take responsibility for anything. I shoved all of my leadership qualities into my shadow and left them there for a really long time. And now, with my word for this year being lead, I'm trying to get familiar with those pieces that I shoved aside and get them back out of the shadow. And that's what I think of. That's one aspect of what I think of shadow work being. Like, okay, identifying that no, these are qualities that exist in me, but I've been denying them.
right.
So now I want to get familiar with them. And this, in this case, from my point of view, I'm trying to get familiar with positive aspects of me, things that I want to bring forth
But you
in
somehow
me.
have rejected or
But I've,
suppressed or repressed
hmm
this. You denied it, or you just maybe just othered it even. I
right.
remember thinking
Yeah.
because I am what people generally consider to be a natural leader. In any situation I find myself in, I am apt to be immediately thrust into a leadership role or to embrace one of my own volition. So you have often projected out all the
Yeah.
leadershipness
Right.
in our household onto me, and in doing so, actually divest it
Yeah.
more from yourself. So you can shove it further and further into the shadow and then start judging yourself for not having this thing that you
Right.
that you've cut off from yourself.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
I love the concept of the shadow because it doesn't actually have to be, it's not about whether somebody else
Oh,
judges
yeah.
this
No.
quality to
Yep.
be good, bad, or indifferent.
Yep.
It's about whether I have rejected or repressed or denied this facet of me or this facet of humanity. So, not all shadow is negative, and it's certainly not all negative to you. Um, the shadow's what you can't accept. It's what you are unable to embrace about yourself. So, shadow work, then, it would follow, is the process, any process by which you become aware of what you're denying, what you've repressed, what you've
Mhm.
hated about yourself, right? What you have cast out and cast away. And Jung spoke of shadow as the apprentice work, meeting one's shadow to come to really acknowledge and be with it. And this isn't something you do all at once, by the way. You don't go away for a shadow work weekend and come back like, check, I did that.
Check.
That's not that's
Yeah, I
not the
don't
thing.
it doesn't sound
It's
possible.
Well, I mean, it's silly, right? Because we're also always in the process of living and therefore enculturating ourselves, being part of a collective, being part of a society, being part of a family, making relationships in which we
And
often mold ourselves, curate ourselves, reject parts of ourselves. So the it is common that we do more of that. We do lots more of that earlier in life, our childhood, our adolescence, our young adulthood, our even our middle adulthood, where we're really still trying to get our feet, trying to make sure we know who we are. Hopefully, a lot of us make a shift, at least at midlife, to recollecting more of ourselves.
but up until that point, every time you find yourself in a new situation, you may find yourself adding to the shadow or
Oh,
extracting from it. Like
well,
it's a
you're
constant
57. Do you still find yourself having added things to the shadow that you did not realize you were
yes. Yeah.
recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm 47. Same, same.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're never done with this. It's not shadow work's not a thing you do. It's not a journal that you buy and you like check, you fill in those particular worksheets and then you're done. And unfortunately, the way work has been splintered off from the rest of Jungian psychology is a little unfortunate because shadow work standing on its own can be valuable. However, there is this impression going around that it's something that we do and then is done. And that's just not the case. Also, we lose some of its depth when we splinter it off from its archetypal basis. So shadow work can be any process. There are lots of processes whereby you become aware of what you've denied about yourself. You recollect those bits. A Jungian way to put this would be to say you remember them, you stitch them back on, right? Like you remember yourself. Imagine that you're a little doll that's had all little bits cut off, and now you stitch them back on, and you there's this new sense of wholeness that comes from recollecting those aspects of yourself. And this is really tricky because shadow, some of it really is terrible.
Mhm.
Some of it really is horrible. Shadow work does not mean embracing and
And
enacting.
realizing, yeah,
It does not mean
enacting. Yeah.
enacting evil action. It does not mean becoming an asshole or doing cruel things to prove that you're in the cool kids club who's like, I'm an asshole. Watch, I'll show you how I'm a fucking asshole. That's not it either. And in fact, I grew up with a lot of that around. There was a lot of shadow identification. Shadow identification is just another way of like letting the pendulum swing so far that now I have become one with. I'm enacting this ridiculously uh, unconscious level of, yeah, I'm just going to be this. So if humanity includes this darkness, this badness, I'll just be it. It's it is complicated to hold the tension of, yeah, what if I become aware of without saying, "I'm just going to give in and live into it and be whatever kind of asshole I feel like being in any moment."
Yeah, I don't know. Does this sound like a paradox to you? So I find parts of myself that I don't want to bring out into the world, but pretending they're not there, I know I've learned, and from you and from my own experience, that just pretending they're not there is just going to let them come up whenever they want to. So,
Yeah.
so I don't want these parts to have a say in the world and dictate my actions, but I need to accept them. So I need to accept that they're there, but not let them.
Yeah, there's a difference between a willingness to accept this reality and, embodying it and deciding that because this is a reality, so the fact that I am a human being with the capacity for evil action, for cruelty,
Hmm.
um, I can I can understand that and witness it without going out and proving to myself by taking those actions. And for some people, this part of the conversation might feel super obvious, but I think it's really important that we talk this through. The doing shadow work feels different for all of us. For
Well,
some
that
people, it's gonna
makes
feel
sense.
like tiptoeing up to the edge of what we have always repressed or what we've denied or what we find so abhorrent we can only see it out there in other people and saying, "Oh, oh, those others are I am like them. There's a seed of that within me," right? Um Most frequently, how we identify shadow is through our projections. So that is a way, and we can talk about projections a little bit more in just a second, but that's one way. Another way, though, is for there are plenty of people who enact the shadow, they embody it, and they perpetrate in this world. They perpetrate really awful action. And sometimes that action is on a grand scale, and almost everyone can agree, like, wow, that is horrifying. Sometimes that action is on a small scale, but is still truly, truly awful. And until I can until I can face that within myself and acknowledge like that was me. I did that. I am I have taken some of these actions. I have thought these thoughts. I have felt these things and I have acted in these ways. We keep not allowing ourselves to see that, which makes it nigh impossible to do the repair work,
Yep.
to apologize, to take accountability, and then to learn how to prevent taking action on our shadow qualities in the future.
I thought I was getting pretty good at embracing multiplicity and embodying multiplicity. And then I started really working with some of my uh, really destructive shadow elements,
Mhm.
acknowledging that I was not just those elements, like that in the moments when I would get caught up in a part of me that is manipulative or violent or uh, abusive,
Mhm.
getting getting caught up in those moments could feel like that's it. That's all of me.
Right. Because it's really easy to get
Because
subsumed
it's
by your
real,
shadow.
yeah. To
Yeah.
let when you said identification, and this would be, yep, I identify with that now, and I don't see everything else.
We fall into the false dichotomy of if I'm that, then I must be evil, and that is
Right.
all that I
Which
am.
means there's no good in me.
Right, and
Yeah.
that also means I'm not actually connecting my ego and self. I'm not staying connected to my capital S self,
Right.
right? If I get
Okay.
subsumed with shadow and I lose myself that way. That's why this is work of maturity. This is
Hmm.
literally evidence. When doing this work is evidence of a maturing being. So, whatever age you are, you're not too late to come to the party. Like, this is really profound work. And there's a great quote from Robert Johnson on how we can start to do our shadow work um, by recollecting our projections. He says, unless we do conscious work on it, the shadow is always projected. That is, it's neatly laid on someone else or something else, so we do not have to take responsibility for it.
And that's how we can see it.
Right.
You
Humans
know
are projection machines. We
mhm.
do this. This is a normal psychological process. We project the stuff we cannot stand, we cannot tolerate within ourselves. We see it out there. So a really simple way to put it is somebody who drives you bonkers, they really like the way that they're being in the world just gets under your skin. It just bothers you. Great. They are a great place for you to start looking for it's not they may have truly icky qualities, that's true, but the fact that it's bothering you so much is a potential way for you to see what bothers you about you. So, I wanna separate the 2 acts. You can absolutely judge someone's behavior as problematic, abhorrent. Fine. You can also, at the same time, do your own work of saying, "Yeah, and I am not entirely different from that other human being. What part of me is so bothered, so triggered?" Like, being triggered, it's great. It's great. If you can be triggered and understand that your trigger is an invitation to your shadow work, like, winning. You are winning. Because in that moment where you pause to say, "Ooh, that person gets to me. Okay, now I have the opportunity to lean in and do my shadow work."
So, yeah, so we've spent some time going over shadow work, and I feel like now we're starting to edge over into the existential kink approach
Yeah.
to doing the shadow work. So, yeah, there's something that's triggered me. What's my next move?
Yeah, so existential kink itself, the simplest way to put it, it's a meditation on what you cannot tolerate about yourself. It's a short practice, but it's meant to be done in repetitively so that you can begin to actually integrate. Integrate does not mean to make it go away. Integrate means to take this in this case, integrate would mean to take this quality and fold it into, "Oh, no, this is actually part of what it is to be human. I need to understand it well enough and allow it to exist within me." It's not simple. The existential kink practice, is I in some ways pretty straightforward and simple. We can put the link in for the straightforward meditation on performing the existential kink, um, meditation, and I I don't know. I like it because it's straightforward, and it starts with just identifying something that you freaking hate, something that you don't like in your experience. Who doesn't have something that they don't like in their experience, right? Any persistent negative pattern, any issue that's going on in your life, especially something that feels like you have no control over. Maybe that's the most important part actually in this moment is a lot of times when we're talking about coaching or personal growth, we look for the places where we have control. We look toward, well, I can change this in my life, I can change that, or I can always change my reaction to things, my response to things. Yeah, and then there's all that shit that it feels like you have no
Mhm.
control over.
Right.
If you have anything in your life that it feels like you have no control over, that's a great place to start. Just noticing what's going on, what the what the predicament your soul is in around this thing that you have no control over. Um, Relationship dramas are a pretty good one. Like we all have relationship dramas, and I don't just mean romantic relationships. Our family relationships are often a really fruitful place. I know mine
As
are.
I have a collection of work relationships that bring up for me things that clearly point me at my shadow work.
Yep. And for me, oh my god, I've owned so many businesses in the course of my life, and doing my work around that has been profound. Like, what it feels like when my business feels like it's just not under my control, it's just happening at me. Like, I can't figure out the next thing or I don't understand. So wherever you feel like you're caught in a negative pattern and you have no control, that's a great place to start. So you identify it, and then the next step, probably the hardest step of the whole process. It's not a long process. It's a few steps, like 7 steps. Um, so once you've identified, you need to notice, but you need to notice something very specific. You gotta notice the zing, the reaction, the emotional charge, the pleasure sensation. You might have a pleasure sensation that you don't recognize as one. What is what is the sensation that you're experiencing? Without judgment. Like, well, you could do this right now. So you have a work situation that is stressful because you don't have control over deadlines, you don't have control over expectations, you didn't get the right to write the contract, and you don't actually have any authority over most of the people working the project, even though you have authority over your direct reports. There's all these other people, right? You have all of that going on. Can you let yourself notice the charge in your body when you think about the issue?
I have thought about some stuff that happened this week from this point of view, and it is really interesting the set of reactions I've had. That my initial interpretation is, this sucks. I
Mhm.
don't like the way this feels. But then I wade through like social conditioning and realize it's not entirely true.
Yeah.
I mean, who among us likes to argue?
Lawyers, I would think.
People. There are lots of people, right? Lawyers, people who argue
Totally.
for a living. There are a lot of things
A lot of
where
us in
that
sales
comes
do a
up,
lot of
and yep, there's
arguing, right? Yep.
and so there are elements of, and arguing is like it's a simplification, but it'll do. Um, I realized that I enjoyed experiencing what felt like the exercise of power, personal power, not like structural power where we were, but just being someone who held his ground and um, said what he wanted to say,
Mm.
even though it didn't necessarily achieve my goals, like
Okay.
my personal goals for what I wanted to have happen in this conversation.
So let's slow down, because now you've laid a whole bunch of meaning making on top of it. So you missed the step. The step is to notice the charge. Notice the emotional charge. Notice the actual visceral sense. What is the charge that you get thinking, like, go into that. Remind yourself
Oh, you
of
want
that
me to talk
situation.
about my physical sensations?
Physical sensations would be a good place to start when we're
Okay.
gonna notice what's going on in our body.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go
Okay.
with a
All right.
physical sensation.
Because I was going for the pleasure of exerting power. That's where
Well,
I was going.
sure. So wait,
Um,
how do you notice that? How do you notice pleasure in your body?
that pleasure is somewhere between like my brain stem and the back of my behind my lungs.
Okay. So, like, behind your sternum?
Like the
Like,
whole running from the top of my neck down to behind my
okay.
sternum.
And what kind of sensation is it?
Kind of a prickle,
Prickle? Do you feel any heat or weight? I hear a texture of prickle.
slight outward pressure.
And do you feel more than that? What other feeling words? So beyond sensations, are there other feelings attached to it?
Where's my feeling wheel? um,
I know, feeling wheel
yeah,
on cell
I
phone.
can think of what it feels like,
There
and
you go,
now
I'll hand you a feelings wheel.
where's my feelings wheel?
Yeah, if you want your
Um,
own feelings wheel with sensations attached, we'll put a link in the show notes for Lindsay Brayman's work. I think her feelings wheel is spectacular.
uh, buzzing, energetic,
Mhm.
um, and satisfied.
Oh, satisfied, okay. So
There's
now
the satisfaction of feeling right, righteous.
okay, yeah, righteous. Okay,
Mhm,
awesome.
righteous.
So you're noticing that charge. Now let yourself feel it. Instead of resisting the feelings associated with this so-called icky situation, just let yourself feel those sensations and those feelings without judgment.
Yeah. And for me, this is the biggest hurdle, to feel them without judgment. And I'm getting better at it, but it's taken some practice.
It takes a lot of practice for me too. I feel like a natural judger. But what happens if you just let yourself feel it? So imagine yourself, put yourself back in a couple of the phone calls you took earlier this week. Just the ones where you got off the phone and you were like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, feel that. Really, like, use your imagination, close your eyes if you need to let yourself feel into that moment of dysregulation,
Yeah.
right? But without judgment, just feel the sensations in your body.
Okay. That's good. And um so the hurdle that I've been having is understanding what without judgment means,
Mm,
because I've been thinking, no, I'm not judging it, but I am. But I still am. I still am. Oh, I still am. Um but now I'm remembering a feeling I once had where I was feeling intensely frustrated while driving, and I was at a stoplight, and I made the conscious decision to just feel it. And that wasn't easy. It was a very simple situation. The situation was gone, so I could just feel it. So I'm kind of trying to tie to that
mhm,
sense. Okay, so nothing has to happen as a result of these feelings.
yeah,
And that, I think, is where I've been tripping myself up. Like, okay, without judgment, sure. Now I want to do something. Oh, that's a judgment, actually.
right.
To take action on it is to apply judgment to it and meaning to it. And so just the feeling. Okay, so just the feeling. Not a big fan of most of that feeling.
Okay, now drop another layer of judgment away and allow yourself to feel that prickle, the
All
prickle.
right.
Let yourself feel the what you named as energetic
Mm-hmm.
and satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Let yourself experience the satisfaction of this so-called unwanted experience. Now, a way to hold this paradox, because this is about working with paradox, is to remember you aren't just this incarnation of your human body. You are also, I don't know, some ridiculous, ineffable little spark of soul. Like you're here. You're here. You get to experience this weirdness, that prickle, that zhuzh. Can you just let yourself feel it and feel a word that I'm going to put in another word that may feel really a lot of resistance or you might not. Can you feel the pleasure, the hidden pleasure in this?
Well, when I add all those things up, it it, um, it is hard to feel them in isolation, like without connecting to my memory and memory other times that I have felt these feelings. Um, but part of the pleasure that I feel comes from the memory of other times that I have felt these things.
Right. Well, when you're feeling this, like really try to stay with the experience in your body and without judgment, recognize that you get to have sensation. And if you were able to hold that sensation just as sensation without a label for it, what does it feel like now?
Well, it feels like it did before, but with less judgment on it.
Yeah, and with less judgment.
With less judgment, um, it is more. Well, it's simpler. It is just
It's
the
simpler.
feeling. It's
Yeah.
just the sensations and the experience, the somatic sensation of being in the moment.
Yeah.
without the judgment of what it means about me, what it means for the future or the next time, just without thinking about any of those things. It is just what it is.
Yeah. And so, what if you say something, just playfully say something like, I'm going to stop right now pretending that I don't enjoy this. And I'm asking you to play with me here. I'm going to stop pretending that I don't enjoy this.
This is where we got to in the first conversation that you and I had, where I was like, nope, nope, can't do that.
Can't or won't? I'm pushing, I know.
Yeah. I mean, and we've already been through it. I mean, yes, of course it won't.
Yeah.
Um,
What if you didn't need
so
to shame
yeah,
yourself for it?
I, what if I didn't?
What if you didn't need to shame yourself for feeling pleasure about this?
Oh, I don't need to shame myself. I want to.
Yeah, why?
Yeah. Why? Don't know exactly.
Well, every time I come up against a desire to shame something, I'm always now very aware of why the word kink is in
Hmm.
existential kink. So
Yep.
Carolyn hit on
Right.
something really smart here, and she called this part of shadow work existential kink. Not because we're all strapping on the leather and getting out our floggers, though you're welcome to if you want. And personally, I'm into it, but because it is kinky to recognize, oh, I have this stuff in my life. I have this situation. I have this drama that I play out over and over again. And I keep pulling it into my life. I keep circling around it. I keep bringing it. These are situations that we just have repetitive patterns, right? I asked you specifically to choose something that is a repetitive pattern in
Yeah.
your life. You have been experiencing this sensation around this pattern for what, 3 decades or more now?
Sure. Yeah.
So can you just let yourself feel the pleasure of,
So I
wow,
can.
nice job.
So I'm going to stop pretending that I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. What if I stop pretending that I don't enjoy it? I'm 100% allowed to enjoy these sensations.
And right. Okay. So staying away from the judgment and the implications and whatnot. Yeah. I can I can acknowledge that I enjoy that.
Mhm. I don't need to shame it.
I don't need to shame it. It's right there. It is how I respond to those situations.
I like
That's
this
me.
weird prickly
Yeah.
feeling. I like this this sensation up and down my neck, behind my sternum.
I like this weird sensation. Now here's where, and this is I don't this is either paradox or multiplicity because I also don't like it. It is both pleasurable and um my feelings wheel again. Let's see here. What else is it? Mm, uh, feels a little, well, there's some disgust in there too.
Okay. Mind if I get really personal now?
Sure.
You ever been on a leash?
Yeah.
You ever been on a leash naked doing things?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever
As you
been
well know.
have you ever been on a leash, naked, told to do things that you found repulsive? Things that were disgusting?
Re- Repulsive is stronger than I would use, but definitely not 100% pleasurable.
Have you ever been, in a situation where you were able to do something that you found ick because you were also getting off on it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you ever experienced, electrical play?
Hmm.
And did you experience the sharpness of that play?
Yes.
Simultaneously, did you also notice that you felt pleasure in your cock?
Yes.
Was that confusing?
It feels like there's another word besides confusing because when I think of confusing, I think, oh, there's a puzzle to be solved. I wasn't trying to solve it. I was just experiencing the dichotomy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
it, yeah.
All right.
It's so in that situation, so you're on a leash, you got a harness on, you're being told to do something that you would not choose to do with your conscious ego, and there you are, you're taking part, you're experiencing electrical shock, like, sensation is everywhere, and your cock's pretty happy about it all, but you're not trying to solve anything. You're not
Right.
trying to make it
Yeah.
different. So what are you doing? You're embracing the paradox exactly as it is. That's it. That's the whole game. That is the work of just willingly holding space for these two seemingly incompatible truths to coexist.
So she really did nail the name
She nailed the
because
name.
that is existence in accepting incompatible truths
So,
all over the place.
but she added something in, and this is why I do think it's brilliant, insofar as it is named, especially because the kink,
Hmm.
the word kink right now at this time and this age, we mean it to be like, "Oh, you get off on that. That
Right.
is pleasurable to
Right.
you." Okay. So, now I know just by the look on your face that my having called to attention the times that you have allowed yourself to experience some, um challenges, like physical challenges or, some repulsive behaviors or some ickiness while also getting off. I know that you also feel some pride in there. There's some like that I've been witness to you also holding the tension of pride. So it's not just 2 things,
My
multiple feelings.
my hyper vigilant partner here detecting pride in through the camera
Well,
on
sure.
the face that I've got right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what if all of this all together, what if you now go back to that original sensation?
Hmm.
So you have these extraordinarily frustrating conversations with people who are not understanding you. You're having to do jobs that don't feel like they're your job. You're having to juggle too many things. You're taking in so much information. You say you don't like that, but you keep you're pulling it into your life. Like that is your work life. What if it's a yes and?
Uh-huh.
Can
Yeah,
you
there it is.
can you
That's
feel the pleasure if you stop judging it? So you said there were actions, and I mean, I could think of what the actions were. Some of those were things that I know you were not. If you were in a cold, unaroused state, you would say, I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna take that action." But in a aroused state, in a state when you can hold the paradox. An aroused state is a time when we are holding paradox, especially an aroused state when we're experiencing that perversity, our own perversity, the desire to experience impact or to experience teasing or to experience even like a drawn out orgasm or sensation that feels really like, oh my God, I would never want this much sensation, except please don't stop.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's the same thing. But we learn to apply it to situations that are also mundane. What if you apply it to this seemingly non sexual, non kinky, non fun work situation? What happens then? So now go back to that. Can you allow yourself to identify the pleasure in that work drama, in the sensations of it?
Yep. Yeah.
It's not it doesn't have to be like holy. You don't it's if you don't
Yep.
feel it in every way.
And it's not I don't have to condone the situation to acknowledge the pleasure that I get out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pursue more situations like that just, just because there's pleasure in it. It's
100%.
just knowing that that is part of what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is why it's a wonderful thing to apply to situations where I feel I have no control. 'Cause just because I feel like I have no control in the situation I'm in, doesn't mean I need to go replicate that. If I well, I closed a business once. I felt like I had no control. It felt like it got out of hand. It felt like I was at the whims of the economy and clients and all and my competition. Yeah, well, I I I could figure out how to hold that, how to do the shadow work, how to hold the pleasure of that helpless victimization I was
Mhm,
feeling,
mhm.
and I also don't need to go start that business again. I get to decide to make a different choice. So this isn't about wallowing in it, forever. This is about what if I don't resign myself to the situation, but I just remove my unconscious resistance to the fact that this is here. This is my actual life. What if I'm experiencing this sensation and it in itself, I don't have to judge as good or bad.
Okay. Okay, so having gone through the meditation, having which, as you said, is a it's a repeated thing. You
Right.
do it. Um, don't expect it to just work the first time and be one. You just keep
Well, you're
doing it,
not
and you
fixing a
because you're not
situation
fixing a
either.
situation. You're just trying to bring
We're
attention
practicing.
to
Yeah, we're
something.
practicing holding that paradox
Okay.
of this thing that my conscious ego says, "Ick, no, I don't want that," except, I also keep having it in my life. So there it is in my life, and so what do I do with it while it's
Yeah.
here? Um, I can be actively working to create a new reality for myself while also saying, "Yeah, but while this situation is here, I'm going to be with it."
Yeah. There's something in the book that that caught my eye, which is the having is evidence of wanting. And
Mhm.
I wrote my own notes around that. But right now, at this part of our conversation, I think, right. So if you've got something, look for what it is that you do want from it that does bring you something that does bring you some kind of pleasure.
I think that's a great point. So you now could go back. Let's return to your earlier statement about your word for the year. I'm not sure whether that was in this conversation or an earlier one. Your word for the year is leadership,
No, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you're working on your leadership. And part of leadership, right, is experiencing what it is to be to deal with whatever the circumstance is,
Right.
to be very present to it.
Yeah.
If you perceive yourself as a victim who is just experiencing your
Yeah.
coworkers and the situations and there's nothing you can do, are you practicing leadership? Are you actually experiencing
Right.
leadership? Don't you need these exact situations in order to move from this victimized
Yeah. Right.
consciousness
Yeah.
into a place of leadership?
Totally.
Um, so it's brilliant. Way to go, unconscious. Way to go, unconscious Ken, to create these situations to allow you to experience fully what it is to be a whiny victim in this situation.
That's right.
In a
Yep.
relatively safe container,
Yeah.
right? Like it has chosen a relatively safe container to let you explore and experiment and feel this. But now, if you don't do the work of bringing your conscious attention to it,
Yes.
no, you could play this out for the next 25, 30 years until, okay, well, that's all she wrote. And then you're dead. And then what? Like, I don't, by the way, don't die in 25 years. I got more stuff to do with you than
Hey, me
that.
too.
Um, but if we don't do the work, so this is why shadow work is about bringing connection, contact between our unconscious material and our conscious ego. Our consciousness, our center of consciousness, which our ego is, it only has just so much capacity at any one moment, right? It can't bear everything, but we can keep bringing little doses. So, an existential kink meditation is designed to be a 15-minute practice tops. I often do it for less than that. I'll do like a 5 or 6 minute meditation, and I'll often do it as part of a bigger practice. Like I'll do it as part of my cold plunging practice, or I'll do it as part of a walk outside. I do it as a method to remind myself that in small doses, I can bring conscious awareness to the fact that my unconscious self is really creative and will keep bringing me the lessons I need over and over and over and over again. And I can choose to either enjoy that, get off on it, or I can keep acting like it's just happening to me.
Yeah. Okay. So bringing attention to these areas is huge. That's enough. Like that is a like for a practice getting to that point and repeatedly um, paying attention to these things. That's very big. Is there any is are there follow-up steps in the existential kink
Well,
process, or are we
the existential kink meditation is a practice that stands on its own.
okay?
There is more to existential kink, but honestly, after existential kink, I would actually recommend taking a diversion over into some deeper depth psychological work, because from there I actually find recollection of projections, golden shadow recollection, doing archetypal work. That's all really profound.
Okay.
So for me, that's the direction I would suggest going. Also, you could certainly take on reclaiming sexual shadow. That's another avenue, and we can make sure that the sexual shadow masterclass is linked here. That's an opportunity. People who are like, "Ooh, I definitely have some reclaiming of shadow I would like to do." It's often hard to know, like, from where do I go? Where
Mhm.
do I get that?
Yep.
But you know, shadow work and a much broader perspective on what it is to do our shadow work is what we do in the individuation alchemy program that I run, which you're actually participating in this year as a participant. Not You're not teaching, you're
Yeah,
not
and
leading. You
wow,
lead with when you're in year of opening with me, but you're participating. The
and what an
individuation
experience that's being.
so Individuation Alchemy is a program that I
Awesome.
I only run once a year. It won't enroll again until January of 2025, but if people are looking for a guide as they go on their journey of individuation, of figuring out how to bring your unconscious material forward and work with it at a pace that is appropriate for you, it's an option, and it's a pretty affordable option when we consider what it often takes to invest in depth psychological work. So I'll make sure there's a link in there. We're only taking waitlist signups right now, but because it doesn't start for another 8 months. But yeah, we can make sure that that's up there, because it's a great thing to know that there is an immense amount of technique and work that can be done in this realm, but it often feels really lonely. And a lot of Jungian work and depth work, when you read about it, it reads as hermetic work. Like, I'm going to go seal myself off and do this alone. But I see it actually working much better in community, where I feel
No.
like, yeah, it's my work to do, but I'm not actually alone. I'm a human.
Yeah, having the community, hearing other people's stories of their experience, comparing it to my own, sharing mine, the support it's very, very different from the solitary analysis I've done before.
So we'll
Very
make sure the
relational.
sign up link is there so that people can get on the wait list for next year, because it's a very limited program. I can only take on just so many um, alchemists in each group. There's only so much. But thanks for bringing it up. I appreciate it, and thank you for volunteering. I know that getting called into the center of the circle.
Wasn't quite where I thought this was going, but it was beautiful. This is how this is a much better description of what it was than what I was going to say instead of just walking through it.
And it's more fun to do it than to talk about
That's right.
it. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
We talk to you all the time. It is absolutely imperative to me that we get to hear from you as well.
Yes, please.
So, we'd love to invite you to join us. Join Ken and I. We're holding monthly Ask Me Anythings. You can show up, bring your questions from podcast episodes, from your relationships, bring questions about non monogamy, about individuation, about relationship skills. We would love to share space with you. We're hosting these AMAs free of charge for our podcast listeners. You are the Playing with Fire community, and it matters a ton to us that we connect with you directly. So
Oh,
go,
I would so love to hear your questions and oh, it'd be so awesome.
yeah. Go to joliehamilton.com/AMA and you'll find a way to sign up real quick and get an invitation to join us in a small group where we're going to get together and talk about all things non monogamy, individuation, and relationships.